Hello, my name's Derek Bailey. I've been a wood turner now for over 40 years and I've been teaching mostly beginners for the last 8 of them. Most of my videos lean towards making unique items, turning aids and devices. Often they're the first attempts and are therefore prone to mistakes and may not be the most seamless way of making them. As such, I'm open to suggestions, advice, ideas for future projects you would like me to make. In this video, I've made a false bottom jewellery box. Sounds a bit painful, I know, but hopefully it won't prove a bridge too far for any of you. Anyway, that's enough waffling. Let's get on. I could have had exercise converting the mahogany to the required size with a handsaw. I cheated, I'm afraid, and used one of these. A lot more expensive, but quick and easy. Otherwise I would have had to search for offcuts at my local joiners. I'm going to turn the whole block of wood in one go and then separate the lid from the body at a later stage. I'm turning to the maximum diameter the block of wood will allow, so there's no flat spots left. As you can see, the normal scraping action of the carbide tip cutter leaves a poor finish, so I've tilted the cutter at about 30 degrees to get a better finish. When the jaws of chucks are made, they're made in one piece and then cut with a slitting saw, approximately 2 millimeters thick. So when you close up the jaws, if you leave a gap between each jaw of around 2 millimeters, then you get the jaws forming a true circle, which will give the maximum of jaw contact with the wood. I've measured the size of the spigot I'm going to grip in the 4-jaw chuck, and we'll put a spigot at each side of the cylinder. This is where I measure the height of the lid. Here I'm introducing a parting tool, which for what it is quite expensive, but it does save a lot of work and avoids hand sawing. When using this tool, it's better to make the groove slightly wider than the tool itself to prevent binding as you go through the wood. When parting off between centres, it's better to leave some wood at the bottom to be later hacksawed off. I'm just creating a dimple in the centre of the wood to aid drilling with a Forstner bit. I'm going to allow a 5mm thick base inside the cylinder, so I'm going to transfer that onto the Forstner bit to give me the depth that I need to drill. due to the fact that it's only a 300-watt motor, I drill using two Forstner bits, smaller and then a larger, and then finish off with the turning tool to the correct diameter. It's good to get into the habit to leave enough wood on the outside diameter to true up any eccentricity that has been created during the boring of the cylinder. Having bored out the smallest of the two inside diameters, I am now going to establish the larger diameter to within 25 millimeters from the bottom inside the container. This will leave a step 25 millimeters deep at the bottom of this container, ready for the false bottom disc to rest on. As you can see, there's a slight wobble as I start to remove the last cut of the internal diameter. I later noticed that the tenon or spigot was not a dovetail form and it was straight across, so when the chuck jaws tightened against it, it didn't pull the bottom of the cylinder towards the chuck jaws, which it would have done if it was a dovetail form. I reversed the cylinder and used a 4-jaw chuck to grip the inside of the cylinder and supported the cylinder with the tailstock revolving centre. Then I cleaned up the spigot, making sure I had a dovetail form, i.e. the front of the spigot is wider than the back of the spigot against the bottom of the cylinder. As you can see, the two internal diameters create a step for the false bottom disc to rest on. I'm creating a 3mm long spigot to fit to the inside diameter of the cylinder, using the cylinder as a gauge to do so. In order to fit the lid properly, I taper the spigot slightly by angling the carbide tip tool. Then when I can feel the lid fitting into the inside diameter of the cylinder, I can then straighten up the taper so that the full length of the spigot enters the cylinder. The front part of the taper fits perfectly, and as a result leaves a gap when the two mating parts are together, so I simply straighten off the taper and there remove the gap. Having fit the lid, I can now remove with the round-nosed carbide tool some of the wood from underneath the lid. It's up to you how deep you want to make the recess inside the lid based on what you're going to put into the box. Off camera, I made another mahogany cylinder to manufacture the false bottom disc, but you can make it out of any scrap wood that's left over. In order to make it easier to take the false bottom disc out of the cylinder, I'm going to insert a small magnet in a recess made to accommodate it. These little magnets are great, small and powerful, and so darn useful about the workshop. I recommend you get some. Using the diamond style carbide tipped, I'm now going to create the small recess for the magnet. Notice that I have to angle the diamond tip to one side to create a straight edge on the inside of the recess. I'm now measuring the thickness of the magnet to determine how thick to make the disc. Possibly about 1 millimeter thicker than the magnet. In order to finish the other side of the disc, I need to make a recess to fit the jaws of the chuck so that I can reverse the disc at a later stage. I'm just making the recess slightly wider than the chuck jaws. I now use the previously shown parting tool to remove the correct thickness of material for the disc. All that's left is to finish off the top side of the disc using abrasives and finishers, i.e. sanding sealer and melamine. In order to stop the disc from falling out when the jewellery box is turned upside down, I'm putting a V-groove in the end of the disc on the circumference, and a plunger will enter the side of the jewellery box and locate in that groove. Using super glue, it's just a simple matter to glue the small magnet to the recess I've made. Having finished the disc, I have now glued the magnet into the reverse side of it and testing the power of the magnet with another magnet. To lift the disc out of the cylinder, I'm using any magnet I just happen to have at hand, which is an LED light which has a magnetic base. But you could make your own holder and use another of the small diameter magnets in the end in the same way. As you can see, I'm finishing the underside of the lid. I've finished the insides of both lid and base of the jewellery box. I'm now putting them together, supported with the tailstock, and finished turn the outside. I'm going to create a 12-hole embellishment at the bottom of the base of the jewellery box, and also 12 holes at the top of the lid, but I will not penetrate through the wall thickness of either. It's just a small recess for a contrasting timber insert such as sycamore to be glued in. I am here turning the inserts in a contrasting timber, which actually is sycamore, that will be inserted into the holes I drilled with the jig. Here I have to be quite precise with the measurement, as I want a good fit of the inserts, the sycamore inserts, into the holes in the jewellery box. I'm smoothing down with stages of abrasives down to 320 grit to get a nice smooth finish, which will hopefully give an accurate fit into the holes of the mahogany cylinder. As usual, I get carried away with the operation of what I'm doing and don't tidy up. I've decided to take the tool rest out while I'm doing this because I don't want to saw through the tool rest as well. Well, here we are. One of the 24 6mm diameter dowels to fit into the holes of the jewellery box. I unfortunately deleted the video showing me drilling the holes in from using the jig, but having seen my previous videos, I hope you'll get a general gist of what I had done. I didn't use super glue for this because I wanted time to fit the dowels properly, so I used PVA glue and left overnight. I use the round carbide insert tool for this, turning the dowels because it's less aggressive than the straight carbide tipped insert. I'm being very gentle here because you don't want to make too savage a cut. It could take out or split the intermittent cutting of the dowels, so I gently remove the wood until I can get it all level. I'm using the standard selection of starting at 120 grit down to 320 grit abrasives. To get a scratch-free finish, it's better to sand parallel to the lathe, i.e. with the grain in between the different grits of abrasives. I'm measuring the position of the false bottom disc, and I'm going to reproduce that position on the outside of the jewellery box. Once I've established the depth of the disc, I make a second line around the circumference to identify its thickness, and then I make a line in the middle of those two where I can drill the holes for the buttons. I'm going to make 4 equally spaced 6mm diameter holes to accommodate 4 ornate buttons, one of which will penetrate the wall of the jewellery box and locate in the groove of the removable disc. Here I'm making the first of 4 ornate buttons that will be glued, 3 of which will be glued onto the outside of the jewellery box. I'm just testing the fit of the buttons in the holes I've just drilled. In order to make the buttons, I've had to change the types of jaws on the 4-jaw chuck to accommodate the smaller diameter. Now I've finished the work on the decorative buttons, I'm cleaning up the bottom of the jewellery box by taking the spigot off and sanding it to a finish. Now I've made the 4 buttons, I'm devoting my time to making a finial for the top of the box. This time out of a scrap piece of spalted beech. It's a great thing about wood turning, you never throw much away. You always retain small items, it saves you a lot of time converting timbers. I'm making the box finial to the same design as I did the buttons. I'm creating what we call a jam chuck, in that I'm going to jam the lid of the lidded box into it to do the finishing work. I've used some old pine for this process. I'm just creating a small dimple in the centre of the lid to guide the brad point drill, to centralise the drill. It's very easy for the brad point drill to go offline a little bit. Here I'm just drilling a 6mm diameter hole for the finial. Now I've jammed the lid into the jam chuck, I can finish off the top and make it nice and smooth. I'm just gluing the finial to the top of the lid. I could have used super glue for this, but for some reason I prefer PVA glue and leave it overnight. Besides, I could have a brew and relax. Notice that I'm using a small piece of scrap wood between the revolving centre in the tailstock and the finial on top of the lid to protect the finial and hold the lid in place in the jam truck just in case. It's time to now glue 3 of the 4 buttons in the base of the jewellery box. Three of the 4 buttons that go into the base of the jewellery box will be glued in. The 4th will be free to be removed and thus releasing the false bottom disc. I'm just testing the effectiveness of the removable button, which stops the false bottom disc from falling out when the jewellery box is inverted. The fit of the lid could be just a little bit tight as it dropped off when I inverted the jewellery box, but overall I'm quite happy with it. Well, that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and equally I hope it was interesting enough for you to try making the jewellery box. All the best and take care, all of you. Bye.